Andreas Willich will be giving our final talk today. Andreas presents as a Scrum Master and Community Manager of the SpecFlow team and is responsible for monitoring its development on GitHub. And being involved with SpecFlow and living documentation for such a long time, he's been able to analyze trends visible in its development and give us a look in his crystal ball, showing us a glimpse of the future of living documentation.
Thank you for the introduction. Title is Living Documentation, the Future and Beyond. Thank you for all to be here and listening. Let's start. Why is living documentation important? And we heard it already today. Software gets released it's getting always released in shorter cycles. The cycles when you deploy to production. So it's getting shorter and shorter. And you don't have any stable documentation anymore. So nothing long time stable. And the second thing is software is not developed in a silo anymore. So you can have a lot of people with different backgrounds, different jobs. They are dragged into software projects, different departments, IT operations, the developers. So, yeah, this is important to get a shared understanding between all. And living documentation is one thing that tries to solve these issues. So, it's a comprehensive documentation. And you get all your specification of an application in one place. And you see if it's working or not. So you have a continued validation. Here you see it's an example of SpecFlow plus Living Doc, product of us. And you have here, you on the left side, you have a tree with the feature files. On the right side, you see the content, and you see also the execution status, so that they are valid. It's continue validated specification that you get with Living Doc, and Living documentation. They should or are, depending on how to set it up, easily accessible for everybody to read what the application is doing, and with all these, living documentation helps onboard people to a topic. If you go, new member joins the team, she can have a look at the living documentation, see what the application should do with concrete examples. And yeah, where are we now? So we have tools that produce usable living documentation that fulfill all these things. Sorry, I changed here. So we have, as mentioned, SpecFlow plus Living Doc. There's Cucumber reports, Pickles, Orchid, and a lot of other reporting tools that work together with your feature files, if it's SpecFlow or Cucumber. So, but now it's the big question: what is coming in the future? So, in my abstract, I had the 4 questions. So what new features we will see in these tools, how we will write them, how will you access it, how do you get to this, your living documentation, and who will read it. So let's take my crystal ball and let's see what is the answer to these questions. So first, what new features will we see in living documentation? We will see a lot of features from test reporting. So at the moment, you have this Venn diagram of the features. We have living documentation, and we have our test reports. And there are some features are in both available. But this will change. These will merge. And the reason for that is to bring the results from your automation to your specification, that you immediately see, okay, not only see, okay, this unit test, this test is failing, but okay, which specification doesn't match anymore? This was most of the most requested feature requests to have additional test output here, and this isn't a feature I would point directly to a living documentation. This is all. This is one thing. What helps you to do this shift left, to bring your testing more near to development. And also other popular feature requests. If I look in our feature request list, we see people want to have images and videos directly in this living documentation. So not only some links, but also have directly the content, what they produce during test execution there. They want to see historical test results, how the execution of the scenarios is changing over time, and also if they have a retry scenario, retry the tests, they want to adjust when how often needs a retry test to pass, that it's good to have to fix some flaky tests. And also there are some ideas floating around to display code coverage data within your living documentation. Have my analytics there, like step usage, how much time you spend in steps, and so on. And it goes that way that you have that further, into the future, to detect similar looking steps but have different automation behind. So all things that exceeds far more what you see as the normal features of a living documentation. First question, second question, how will you write your living documentation? And perhaps you notice this, Markdown is everywhere. I'm now editing WordPress content already in Markdown. So Markdown is something viral, I don't know. And feature files are boring text files. Yeah, but they're text files and you can't do much with them. And sometimes text is not enough. So I'm not sure if it's the proper English translation, but in German there's a saying that picture says more than 1,000 words, and having a picture in your living documentation could probably save you, I don't know how many steps and lines and complicated descriptions. And if you get to longer real-life scenarios and not these example scenarios, also formatting is needed to make it simply more readable for the users. If you have half a screen of a scenario, also if you use brief, you're looking for formatting options, and this gives you Markdown. And we already have support in some of the tools in some of areas with Markdown. So Living Doc, SpecFlow+ Living Doc supports Markdown in descriptions, in feature and scenario descriptions, with all the formatting, images, links between files, externals, links, and it's quite useful what we found. But this is only the start. So soon you can write your whole scenarios in Markdown itself. So some weeks ago, what you see here is from a pull request for the Gherkin parser. It's in the meantime, when I remember correctly, merged. So you can write your whole feature file in a Markdown syntax. So on the left side, you have the Markdown, the raw Markdown as text file. On the right side, you see the rendered Markdown. So headline 1 is feature with the step definition title. For rules, you use headline 2. And then you have, for your scenarios examples, your headline 3 with everything. And you see you have code formatting there. You can give table parameters. You can make normal Markdown tables. And this is coming. And I think this makes it quite more you can play around, get nicer looking living documentation out of it, and with that it gets more accessible. And accessible is exactly the word for the next question, how you will access it. So it will and it needs to get easier for everybody to access your living documentation. So what we see is there's still an entry barrier for non-developers with the living documentation tools. It's getting better, but feature files and so and stuff are for developers and testers at the moment still easier accessible than for product owners, and this blocks the adoption. So you really need that all your team is able easily to access it and also find it, simply to get the tools that you're using within the team more closer together. And it's, yeah, product owners don't usually access source control systems on IDEs. And there, to make it easier for everybody, I see two ways what will happen, and is already happening. So better and tighter integration into planning tools like Azure DevOps, Jira, and so. First step has as a menu entry. This is from Azure DevOps with Spectral plus Living Doc, but also available direct at your story, work item, and backlog level, that you see the scenarios, the features that you wrote for this item rather quickly and can jump between. This is, so there's for Azure DevOps Spectral plus Living Doc, for Jira there's Behave Pro, and these kind of tools, I think, enhance the collaboration between all the team. That it's all about unique collaboration to work on that, to get a shared understanding. The other thing is, outside of your planning words, there will be more dedicated software as a service offerings. There's now already Cucumber reports to host your Living Doc and report from Cucumber, from the different Q1, but I think there will coming more. And what will also happen is SpecFlow is used by a lot of enterprises, and there's always this hesitation to use software as a service tools because of reasons. And so there will always be, I think, some integrations that they could use their own cloud storage for hosting the living documentation, or also there will be still on-premise hosting solutions for these big enterprises, but aren't there yet, where perhaps a smaller startup is, because there's simply not yet sadly not yet the trust in cloud offerings and dedicated software as a service offerings. Good. Already at the last question, ask who will read it, and I say a lot of more people will read your living documentation as up now. Currently reading, always depends on the team, but you have your developers, your testers, your product owner that reads your living documentation and work with them. But there will also be new people there. So I saw it already in projects. This will also go to the customers or at the end user at the customers. So customers is for me so is using really the software. And at the end, probably everybody who has something to do with your software will someone get to your living documentation. And I think the reason for this is, when you have it, you will find more usage for your living documentation. And one usage could be to make an end user documentation also out of your living documentation. How you can do this? You combine features. Like we have already Markdown support for feature and scenario description, where you could describe, how the feature, how the scenarios works, and the scenarios with the concrete examples. So, how often ask you in a application, okay, I have no this use case, how do I do this? Now you could provide detailed concrete examples for the end user. You generate a single HTML file when you release the software or packages with the release, like with Spectral Living Doc has such a feature, and then you upload it to a web server. And it's accessible. You have search, you have all your stuff. You can, for this version, probably disable the test execution status, that this is not interesting for the end user. But you get it. So this is, and with the features that, with other features and so that's coming, perhaps you can get rid of writing two different documentations. And save some time and use the time for other things. So, and already at the conclusion, what will happen in the future and beyond? Let's have a look again. Why is living documentation important? And all what is happening in this area, it's about these topics. Having the software is released in shorter circles. That's where all the features from test reporting is coming in. And then you have this collaboration features and getting more accessible features because the software is not developed alone. It's not 5 people in a room and they develop, and after one they're finished. A lot of people involved, and you need to create a shared understanding with all the involved people, and for that living documentation is a crucial thing. Good. Thank you for listening, and in time for the Q&A. Do we have some questions?
Thank you, Andreas, for this talk. Well, apologies for the technical issues we had for a while, but you made up for it. Well, you've been talking about a lot about the future of SpecFlow and how this will help us in getting living documentation to well, more people, more stakeholders than is now the case. Why is that so important?
That you produce the same, the correct is shared. It's the shared understanding, not only within the team but also with the customers, that the software is really doing that what it should. And I think Gaspar already talked in his talk about it. For that, it's these concrete examples crucial that everybody has the same understanding, and it's written in with the used words in the problem domain that everybody can understand it. And if they stand together or call together and look at the scenario, say yes, exactly, that's how the application should work. And at the moment, these are feature files in a source control system in IDE to get access, and living documentation gets these things out of there and makes it accessible. You get one HTML file, you have a URL where you can look at it and see it. So make your features and scenarios that you write for Cucumber or SpecFlow more accessible.
Thank you. So basically, you are saying that we're going away from the technical way. We're now writing it down to a more visual markup way, HTML way.
Yeah, because this is, I can't remember now. I think Gherkin is now 12, 13 years old, and we now see some limitations simply. And Markdown, in that case, could be a solution to get something nice and more easily readable out of it. But again, increases the accessibility, acceptance of a living documentation within your team and the end user.
Clear. Sounds like a bright future. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. A lot of work to do in this area.
Awesome. Thank you, Andreas, for sharing this with us and giving us a glimpse into the future of living documentation and SpecFlow.